right. Cool. I have Dean on my trusty Apple Watch. So I'm not going to steal much of Chris's time. So if you're joining us, this is Chris Payne. Chris is joining us from Australia, and it's evening there. So Chris, I'm not sure if you've had a drink, but we wouldn't judge if you had. If you're viewing this now, you've had a drink, it might be a different story. But yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time taking time away from Chris. I'm going to hand over to him to take us through this next session. So enjoy it. Thanks, Chris.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Andrea. Okay, welcome everybody. As I was introduced, my name is Chris Payne. I have going to present this session where I have chosen the possibly longest title out of all of the presentations at this conference. There should be some special award for that. Possibly there isn't. But today we're going to talk about people analytics, dashboards, the story that we've been sold, the dream that we've been living but aren't really living, and how can we get there, and what's going to happen. So here we go. By the way, you probably can't see the slides because I'm walking in front of them. That's on purpose. That means that I can read from the slides and pretend that I'm actually doing something very clever, or I'm actually just reading the slides, but you can't see them, so it's worthwhile. It's a great idea. I thought of that. Thanks, Timo Eller, for giving me that idea. But to start with, if there's one thing which isn't blockchain that has to be mentioned in every session during the conference in the SHR track, it has to be HXM. The journey from HXM. Now, I've got my own personal take on where this has gone. I think obviously it was clearly the purchase of Qualtrics from SAP, and all the senior execs were told, hey, you have to do experience stuff. And then, we came up with this idea of HXM, but it's evolved an awful lot from there. Even if that was the genesis of HXM, and I hope it really wasn't, where we are now is a very different place. So we've actually taken a bit of a journey, and this has been an ongoing journey, whether SuccessFactors are trying to corner the market and coin their own phrase of development. And I did like David's slide earlier with the little inflection point. This journey has been ongoing for quite some time. When I started implementing SAP HR, well over 20 years ago, that's why I haven't got any hair. I did try to remove the shine. My daughter lent me some of this stuff, but it didn't work. It was a very different world. HR was the center. So as a manager, I would potentially fill in a piece of paper, and I would go over to HR and I'd put it in their particular in tray, and then they would process it and it'd end up in payroll. And that's how it was. And HR probably dictated that these were the forms that I should be filling in and the order that I needed to fill them in and when I filled them in. And they would all shout at me about doing my performance review. And it may well still be that way in some of your companies, that a lot of the processes are led by HR, not necessarily being by the manager, which was the next evolution in this journey of HXM, where we implemented ESS and especially manager self-service, and gave the idea that the managers could actually potentially run and manage some of these processes themselves. They could kick off a job requisition. They could start the recruitment process. They could, manage individual performance reviews if they wanted to, run through those things. This is probably where most of us are right now along our HXM journey. But what I want to talk about today is a little bit about where I see the next step. And I think this is happening in some areas in SuccessFactors. And sorry, Martin, I'm mainly talking about SuccessFactors, not the on-premise, is the employee-led phase. This is where, rather than it being the managers who are pushing the processes, it's about me as an employee. What's my experience? What do I want to do? What do I want to do within? Where do I want to work? What are the things that I want to learn? It's about me. I'm going to be incredibly selfish and opinionated throughout this whole presentation, but it's about me. It's about what I want to do as an employee. Now, true, we're not there totally, and there's certainly some things which are still manager led, and there's probably some things which are still led by HR team, but there's a move towards this employee led, and I think that this is something that we need to consider as we move on. So next to the next question is reporting versus dashboarding. So I went and I just looked up on Stack Overflow some definitions. It's a great way to shortcut doing a presentation build. But basically, a dashboard, you can probably read that just as well as I can. I think I'm standing out of the way enough that you can see that now. But a dashboard is really a visual representation. And the key thing there is it's information that can be monitored at a glance. So put together a whole bunch of information so I can see that at one time. A report, on the other hand, is an ordered data set. It's that big list, and it has a very important purpose. And I think that there is still a need for reports. And my dog just walked in. Good grief. Thank you. So we are doing this live, truly live. A report is the ordered data set that works through. And whilst it is important to have dashboards, it is also important to remember that we potentially need reports for some purposes, but they are probably not the purposes which are leading us in that direction of a continued HXM, the HXM evolutionary view. Where that's coming from is probably this next one. And now I'm going to ask for people to type something into the chat. Please, because I would love to get a little bit of, I haven't put a poll in here. Analytics versus reporting and dashboarding. What do you think's the difference? What's the difference between analytics and dashboarding? Like, we put pretty graphs up, yeah? Come on, someone type something into the chat. Really? Someone has to do it. I'm looking. Oh, come on. You can do it. Yes! We got some stuff coming through. Sven, analytics should be more strategic. Thomas, reporting our techniques in analytics. Dan is pressing dots. Thank you, Dan, for getting in there and putting something. Okay, the thing that for me differentiates reporting and analytics is the actionable insight. If I'm actually doing dashboarding, the difference is if I can take that and go, right, now I've seen that, I need to do something with it. I need to make a change. I've seen the ball spinning off the top. I need to change direction and move that way to catch the ball that's spinning towards me if I'm this little dog, which is just this beautiful picture. I had no idea why, but I love this picture. But you need to change. You need to make a difference. That's where analytics comes in. Dashboarding is wonderful. We can see our dashboards, but if we can actually then use those dashboards to make a change to how we're going to approach our information, that's actionable insight. That's analytics. Are we there yet? Hell no. Absolutely not. We're barely managing dashboarding. But to that point, are we there yet with people analytics? And this is where I'm going to look. I'm really sorry to any SAP people who are watching. I wear your t-shirts, but I do not work for your company. I'm going to tell this how I see it, and I would love for you to come and have a session with me, and we can do an online little chat about how I'm so wrong about the things I'm about to say. But here we go. Where are we at right now? First of all, if you want to report on onboarding, and that's onboarding, not onboarding 1.0, because they've renamed it. You may have been aware of that. If you want to report on onboarding, that's the onboarding 2.0, you need people analytics. It's the only way you can use it. I did mention that, talking about renaming, it was funny to see David mention the name of Stories in People Analytics, which is the official title. He called it People Stories or People Reporting Stories. Anyway, he got it wrong. Well, it's probably I've got it wrong. They've renamed it again. We'll see. But if you want to be able to report on onboarding, you're going to need to use People Analytics. Currently, David did mention that for learning, it's in this release, this first half release, which is happening, which is like right now. For SuccessFactors, first half 2021, we'll get access to the learning data. Now, so caveat, you won't get access to be able to combine the data. So the data sets will be separate. So the data model, you cannot combine the data models of learning and People Analytics at the same time, and the rest of SuccessFactors basically at the same time. That's coming. I've been promised that that will come, but at the moment, it's not quite there. Likewise, we're a bit reliant on a particular data model at the moment. It's not going back so well. So we've got, which is the standard SAP data model, and that makes sense in some cases. Like, for example, if I have a person and I have a person can have multiple assignments, if I'm using concurrent employment, so I can go from a given assignment of a person and to that person, so I can get potentially the email information, which is linked to the person, but I can't go from the person to the assignment because they might have multiple of them. And how do I know which one to go and look at? So sometimes it can be a little bit tricky when you're bringing this data to work through it all. The other thing at the moment is limited time slicing. So if I want to be able to report, and I've done certain workarounds here, but it's really quite difficult. If I want to do something like, what's my position occupancy rate over the last 4 months, and put that in a graph, it's doable, but it's hard to be able to get that kind of information through People Analytics. That kind of time slicing capability comes really much better in Workforce Analytics. And there's a reason why they're still keeping the Workforce Analytics around. It's because it basically disrupts and depackages your entire SuccessFactors database into an easily time-sliced, lookable set of data. So, you know, I can kind of understand why they went there. There's no predictive analytics in People Analytics, stories in People Analytics. That's for the big brother. You buy the SAC, the proper analytics, and we'll see, you know, where that comes in with the Workforce Analytics. Linking to content is coming. This is one of the big things that I'm really looking forward to, because I've built a whole bunch of these People Analytics reports, and you get a list of people that I want to do some actionable insight on them and update their information. And I'd just like to click on the link and take me to their profile, but you can't do that right now. And hierarchical reporting is difficult, if not impossible. So if I want to be able to say I would like to run a report for this particular part of the organizational hierarchy, you can kind of do it. It's just not, it's not as easy as, certainly not as easy as when you went back into the old SAP and you'd see the entire organizational hierarchy and you go, I want to choose that point as my start and then run. Yeah, no. Which kind of makes sense because the whole solution isn't based around that. It's based on providing the data that I have and leveraging those role-based permissions that are in SuccessFactors to be able to see only the data that I can see. But that's problematic in sometimes I can see a lot more data than I want to report on. So sometimes, you know, this filtering rather than reporting, so this whole concept of having a dashboard which shows me the information that I need to see right now can be tricky. Okay, more downsides, sorry. Stability. Oh my goodness, if you guys have used People Analytics and you've been building your own custom reports, if you haven't had the issue where it just seems to completely crash on you, you've got to press refresh and then you've lost everything that you've been working on for the last 20 minutes. Wow, you learned that save often button piece a lot earlier than I did. It seems to be, I've got the beautiful little pictures here, haven't I? If I move over here, you can see that there's a running man, and the running seems to be stable, but building is not. So when you're building those queries, just save them a lot. And look, running does seem to be stable. I do have reports from some customers I'm working with. The running isn't stable for them as well, but Yeah, does seem to be for me. So, they weren't customers that I implemented the solution for, just saying. And then the third one, which I have no idea why there is a picture of a chicken in the middle there. I just did that, generate auto slide pictures that you can do in PowerPoint, and it said reliance on IIS and IPS is obviously a chicken. I don't know whether that's because it cocks it up. But look, quite honestly, IIS and IPS, great tooling. I'm really in with working with that area. Mainly it's because people who want to bring on people analytics, it's a prerequisite. You must implement IIS and IPS. So that's the authentication tooling. So it's changing over from using SuccessFactors as a platform authentication and using a common SAP platform authentication tooling. It's so much better. It's got so much more functionality. You can do the multi-factor authentication. I did this demo the other day where I logged in by pressing my finger on the touchpad on my MacBook, and that logged me into SuccessFactors. It's like there's some cool functionality, and it is pretty good, but people mess it up as well, and that makes it harder. So think of that. All right. So now I've had enough of a go at dissing people analytics. I have to say I do love this product. I think it is definitely the way forward. And if you haven't got it implemented in your system, you should. It's not going to cost you any more licensing. It's there. It's part of the product that you've already paid for if you've got SuccessFactors, and it is fantastic. Okay, that's my opinion. Other people have other ones. But how do we get past this? I talk about this wonderful insight to action and analytics and dashboards, which are showing the right things. But how do we get past this? Oh, can you schedule that report for me? I'd like it emailed to me every Monday, if you could. That'd be great. Thanks, Chris. How do you get past that? Because if that's the attitude and the mentality in your organization, you're not going to get the value from people analytics that you could. Trust me, look, you can schedule reports and they work apparently apart from with learning at the moment, but you can schedule reports, and you can still use the older learning reports if you really wanted to schedule a weekly extract of Excel, but you can do that. That's doable. It's part of the standard functionality of people analytics. Is that getting you your value? I don't think so. I think that's not getting your insight to action. That's continuing with the same processes that we've done for many years. So turn it around. How can we get that insight to action to happen? Well, first, I think you've got to work backwards. You've got to figure out what are the actions that you can actually get people to do. Like, there is no point in coming up with a whole new set of action of data and imagining that your managers or your employees are going to do something completely different to what they're doing today just because you put a pretty graph in front of them. No, what you need to do is look at what are the actions that they're currently working through. Now, is that having a chat with some of their team members when they see that, the team members not taking any leave for a year? That's a bit of a worry. It's really into your work. It's great to see that you're into your work. That's probably not healthy. I know I don't take nearly as much leave as I should. But that's probably an action that you could look at. Okay, so what if I was going to have that action? What data do I need to inform that action? Well, I need to know that this person's my team member. I need to know that when they've taken leave, or how much leave, have they got excess leave? Is it something that I need to worry about so that they're my manager? So I'm their manager. Have they taken leave in the past? Have they got leave booked into the future, which is the reason Have we had a discussion about this previously? You know, have we got plans set up to do this? Have we mentioned this before? There's a whole bunch. Are they performing badly within the organization? Do I have performance results for this person? You know, are we underpaying them? Are they the reason they're working so hard because they don't want to take any leave because they're trying to save up for something and they're working lots of hours of overtime? I don't know. But those are perhaps the data points that I need to look to be able to inform the action to go and have a chat with that person. And then, and this is the important thing, is if I were to put this dashboard together, which showed all of this information about this person, what is the trigger that would make me, as that manager, go and have a chat with that person and say, hey, we need to have a discussion. Matt, are you okay? Are you okay? I know COVID's been absolutely terrible. We keep on having to talk over video conferences. I mean, hopefully we can get down, and have a beer soon. But are you okay, mate? I've just noticed, you haven't taken any leave for a while. Now, what if I can if I can trigger that kind of behavior to happen in a manager with their team? Now that's made a huge difference. That's that's an insight to action. I think I got that one backwards. Yes. So that's where we need to go. And that's what I think you need to look at when you're putting together any dashboards. Do you get that? Okay. Got some great here. Suggest automated pay deduction for every report schedule request. I like it, Sven. Yes. Oh my goodness. All right. Moving on. Not only should you consider, that backwards, look at the actions and then try and figure out what insights can take you to those actions, but also consider, and this is where I'm talking about that HXM path. Where are we moving along? Are we more on the HR side, or are we more on the employee side? I mean, who makes the decisions about the employees? Because really, quite a lot of those decisions are the employees that are going to make them. The employee decides whether they're going to stay in your organization or they're going to leave and go somewhere else. They make that decision. I mean, you could probably help them by just going out the door, but that's probably an employee you don't want to keep anyway. So, but if you do have employees and you want to retain them and you want them to be engaged in your organization, are you actually giving those employees enough data to make that reasonable choice? So this is one of those things that I think we can change around. When we start talking about people analytics, it's not just a product that only needs to be limited to the managers, to the HR team. I mean, I know that you're going to have a super duper HR administrator who knows how to run reports and put them together brilliantly. And they're probably still going to be emailing those reports to a bunch of execs. But wouldn't it be nice if you could take some of those reports, just a couple, and put them out there to everyone, to the employees? Give them an idea of the vision that your company's going, the direction your company's going. Is the direction your company's going the same direction as that person's career progression's going? Is that what they want to do? Hopefully it is. Because if it is, that's going to be a really key motivator in them staying with you. Of course, it's not going to be an easy path to do that. To personalize your dashboards that you bring towards people is going to be really tricky. And part of that is the tooling. Part of it is just like, it's tricky. Like, you've got to think about the security. It's really key. If you're presenting information to employees, you've got to make sure that you're not presenting too much. And that's hard because it's relying on your RBPs. So potentially I want to provide some information, which is, I don't know, where are you at with your performance reviews relative to the rest of the organization? This could be something. it might motivate the person. When was the last time that you had a check-in with your manager? When was the last time that you managed to leave? I don't think the leave balances employees aren't going to be too worried about what everyone else is doing with leave balances, but potentially performance reviews. Let's just take that one as an example. But what that means is that you need to set up the RBPs so that the employee can read the totality of the performance information to be able to get the statistics so that you can put it into a graph to show it, because everything in people analytics is controlled by those role-based permissions, which is really important. It's just really great and really makes life difficult if you want to expose additional data, because quite often you need to expose the lower granularities of the data to expose the higher granularity that you can get aggregated. And there isn't, at the moment, as far as I can see, a way to work around that in people analytics. The final bit is you can build the most awesome dashboard in the world, but if that call to action is that is coming out of that dashboard that you're putting together and giving to a person, is that they have to use a really horrible, like example, performance review process, it's not going to work. You can't make people analytics be your solution, your salve that solves all the problems. You need to ensure that you're building the rest of your human experience in the same time. Right. So, final slide. These are my thoughts. I am incredibly opinionated, and I love being so. But I think that the future is personal. It's not going to be about managers wanting to do things. It's going to be about employees wanting to do things and the managers enabling them and making the whole enterprise work better. Making information transparent is really good. People like it, but it is hard to do. Don't necessarily be afraid if not everyone's on board. Not everyone is going to be up for this. This is a movement along the lines. Change is hard, making it do that. But think about, it may not be right for your organization. And in many organizations, what I'm talking about is just like pie in the sky dreams. That's fine. That's okay. Think about it. But think about, if your competitor did this, would they win? If they're not, and it's going to just cause them lots of grief, great, you're on the right track, don't worry about it. But if they did do this and it would cause people to go and work there rather than at your company, think about it, because experience does win. Hashtag. There, the lovely people from SAP will like me now. All right, I'm on to questions. Feel free to come in.
Chris,
yeah, am I out of time?
That was so perfectly timed. I can't even believe it. Although with that brilliant background, I think we expected nothing less. Oh, your background's gone. You failed. Oh. If anyone's got a question for Chris, we have about 30 seconds. You can pop it in the chat. Alternatively, I'm sure Chris wouldn't mind receiving a message from you or an email. So do get in touch. Chris, you've disappeared off screen, but thank you. You have. You've just got a gray screen.
Oh dear, that's not good. It's strange. It's showing up on my screen.
No, you're gone. But thank you so much. That was really, really cool and very insightful. So we're going to release you, Chris, because you seem to be having some trouble. But if you are going to be joining us for Juliet's session next, stick around for 1 more minute. Alternatively, you can make your way to one of the other sessions. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, cheers. Thanks very much. Bye, everyone.